you a woman in medicine feeling overwhelmed and disconnected from the personal fulfillment that you desire? You're in the right place. Join doctors Joanne and Aaron as they rewrite the rules for women in medicine. Let's begin.
Welcome to Create Meaning in Medicine, Rewriting the Rules for Women Physicians. In this episode, I'm so excited to talk to Dr. Joanne Sotelo because we were brainstorming so much as we rebranded to this new version of the podcast. And one of the words that we landed on is aspiration. And Joanne was sharing with me this experience she recently had investing in herself and as a physician, as a coach, as a human being. And a quote that she came back from this mastermind retreat was so aspirational. And I'm not going to try to share that quote. I'm going to let Joanne do that, but it really resonated with one of the messages that we want on this podcast, and that is having aspirations. So Joanne, share this beautiful quote and let's kind of dig deep into it.
The quote is, and I'm paraphrasing, if you can feel more fulfilled in your life without changing anything, that's magic. And this was said by Brendan Bouchard. You all have heard us talk about Brendan Bouchard. He's a big name in the personal development world, and he's been our coach for a long time. And he started this small mastermind I participated in just this last week with a lot of aspiration, like Erin was saying. And he started there, and you have to sit with that thought. So let me repeat it, right? Like if you can find more fulfillment in your life without changing anything, that's magic. And I'm repeating it because it sounds so pretty. And then when we're struggling, where we're not feeling well, it's just easy to say, oh, I'm not feeling this way because this is happening, or I'm going through this struggle, or there's this big change going on. And I'm not saying that we need to minimize that. It's more actually of thinking, in all of this that's going on, where can I find some joy? Where can I find some peace? Where can I find that fulfillment? And that is what we mean with personal power. That is definitely magic. So I really wanted to share that because when I sat with it, I felt it all over my body. And this is the aspiration that we need as women in medicine, because we can't deny all the struggles that we go through and that our jobs are difficult, and we can still find this fulfillment even in the little details in life.
I love that. And Joanne, to me, it seems like there's two opposite ends of this quote. And one is that maybe we've been so intentional with our lives instead of kind of randomly ending up where we're at, going, how did I even end up here? We've intentionally made choices that get us closer and closer to the life we aspire to. So that empowerment, what have I done to create the life that I have? And the other half, as you shared, is there are things out of our control. There are things maybe with your employer, with your family, with your circumstances you have no control over. And when you can learn to lean into the life you have and do what you can to create the life you aspire to, that is magic, because you've leaned into, what do I have control over? What do I not have control over? And how can I be at peace and continue working towards maybe this level of magic today? And then as we talk about so much personal development, doesn't mean the same level of magic today is what magic you're going to experience a year from now, when you bring even more intention and you lean even more into the magic that you've created. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes. I love it. Yes, and as women in medicine, we strive for excellence. That's how we are programmed, and we do it in every role, as physicians, our caretakers, in our roles as leaders, healers, family members, and it can be exhausting. But we know how to do that, and instead, maybe we can start asking ourselves, what do I truly aspire beyond the day-to-day grind? What is really important for me right now? What is that deeper purpose, that deeper passion that aligns with your values in this time of your life? And we don't sit down and ask ourselves these questions often. And Erin and I, we're always trying to bring these questions that add clarity to your life. So pause and ask yourself that question again. What do you truly aspire beyond the day-to-day grind? Because we know how to do the day-to-day grind really well. And the problem is that sometimes we lose ourselves in the process, and we need to get back to that core of who we are and what we love, what we want.
Oh
That's
my
my
gosh,
my
Joanne,
passion
I'm
here.
writing down like all these notes, and your wisdom just keeps going and going and going. I'm like, oh my gosh, these are all such quotable things about. I love talking about not just purpose, but with passion, adding clarity, and getting out of the grind that we're so good at. Oh my gosh, so powerful. And I want to highlight, Joanne, when I met you, I was very new to personal development, maybe a couple years in. You started your personal development. I'm not sure the details of how you kind of stumbled into it or fell into it. But you've been at this in personal development for a really long time. And I know for me, I was 20 years into my medical careers and attending, not even including residency or medical school before I even learned about people like Tony Robbins, Brendan Burchard, people in positive psychology like Sean Achor, Brene Brown. And I'm really curious about how can this be something that is especially important for women in medicine?
I believe I was lucky that in my training as a psychiatrist, I was exposed to topics of personal development and personal growth early on, more as a way to get us, that we also did therapy. It was encouraged for us to do our own psychotherapy and our own groups therapy. So if we kind of experience it on the other side, and we have extra tools. And unfortunately, there's just so much that we can do as psychiatrists. So I've always been in the search of what else can I offer my patients, but then also for myself. And then in that kind of I started more as in my nerd self of what else can I learn. I think we all share that, and we like that learning process. And then I was like, oh wait, this is helping me feel better. And it's also giving me insight of, oh, maybe these are some areas that I should be working on. And it doesn't mean that there's anything broken. I think that, in a little tangent here, when we talk about, I've talked about it a lot in terms of the psychotherapy, psychiatry world, but then also in terms of coaching, I think that something that is different sometimes of what I hear for us as physicians, different from executives or athletes, is that we think of coaching as the need if there's something wrong. Like if I'm in coaching, it's because there's something broken that needs to be fixed, and there's still even a little bit of stigma, rather than that. No, this is, yes, it's going to help you feel better, and it's also going to help you grow. So I went on a tangent there, but
Well,
it's
I do want to pause though. That is magic there, because as women physicians, our tolerance level is not normal. We've talked on previous episodes about mental health issues in physicians and how we still show up to work. We still function at work even when we have clinical depression, even when we have clinical burnout. Our tolerance level is so incredibly high, and we oftentimes wait until we're so incredibly broken or things are so incredibly off kilter instead of intervening early, instead of leaning in as a preventive measure, whether it's working with a counselor, working with a coach. And I tout this all the time. Can we learn to ask for help sooner? Can we learn to not be teetering? I'm going to put my hands on the edge of, like teetering on the edge of a cliff, and you're just any little millimeter in the wrong direction and you're going to go falling off the cliff. Can we not wait that long? Can we say, oh, can I embrace this even when it's not at emergency status? And oh my gosh, the magic that happens when we do, when I started working with a coach and going, oh my gosh, this is incredible. I'm not going to go without a coach, no matter how good I'm doing for the most part, because I know it's going to keep me moving forward much smoother. For some people, that may be a mentor or a therapist, but I'm going to encourage our listener. How high is your tolerance level? And what might happen if you lowered it, maybe not just a little bit, but significantly, and learn to ask for help or input much sooner? What kind of magic might happen? So thanks for letting me
And
interrupt, Joanne, but that's so important to me.
yes, and also again going back to help and growth. So it's yes, it's this personal development or coaching will help you navigate life and some struggles and challenges. And then there's also the and what's next. And I always believe if we even have the thought of I can be better, it becomes a responsibility. And it becomes also a responsibility for the ripple effect that it carries, not just in our caretaking for patients, but as family members, for our partners, for our kids, that it creates this trickle down, but then also expansive ripple effect that if we're better, we have more to give and we give from a different place. So I'm obviously we're very biased into the importance of personal growth and coaching, but I hope that you are hearing us in also in how we've shared some of our experiences and some of our struggles and how all this personal development work and coaching has helped us. And like I say, it's not that I don't struggle or I don't get stuck in drama. Believe me, I do. I just don't get stuck there as long. Like I can kind of reframe it, kind of look at the silver lining. And, you were asking me at how I was why is this important or how did I get into it? And I started thinking this is an additional tool that I can give my patients. And then it was like, oh, wait, these are additional tools for myself and all of those around me. And now for you, our listeners. So we'll give you a lot more of this.
And I want to pause there because for many people in medicine, they don't, maybe they've never heard of coaching unless they've heard us talking. Maybe they've never heard of personal development or even where to get started. And they might think, well, Joanne and Aaron are coaches. Well, they've been doing this for a long time. This isn't relevant to me. And so I would like to ask you specifically, Joanne, how has your work in personal development created a better psychiatrist in you? How has this directly impacted the patients you care for? And on the flip side, what do you think would have happened to your patient care had you never dabbled or dove deep into personal development?
What a good question. I think it's the straightforward tools that I can always ask my patients. Um, questions it from a different standpoint. And also for the people who are doing better, I can offer them a little bit of a challenge. It's not just the hand holding. And let me also kind of in my little, talking about all this big spectrum of help. A lot of the coaching strategies that we use are based on a lot of psychotherapy techniques that were, described for decades. So coaching is not a new thing. It's just an adaptation of how we can use a lot of the things that are research-based in psychotherapy and adapt them to more of improvement and growth and next level. So there's a two-part to your question. I show up better. My battery is full most of the time. I have better attitudes. I know how to reframe my thoughts, how to reset my energy. I keep myself in check. I get that question a lot of, you are hearing people talk about their struggles all day. How do you do it? How do you keep yourself in check? How are you not just completely drained and sad at the end of the day? And sometimes I am, but it's a very different place. And, I use all of my tools every day and some patients are a little bit harder in that emotional drain, but it's just easier for me to reset. So just because of that, I'm less likely to be overwhelmed. I'm less likely to be burned out. I'm less likely to be struggling emotionally myself. So I'm a better overall person for my patients and everyone around me, I believe, patting myself in the back. Again, not that I don't struggle, but then for the patients, I believe that I have more tools, that I'm more empathic, I am more grounded. I'm not just stuck in terms of the medications.
So, Joanne, I've loved hearing how practical you leaning into personal development, not just CME for psychiatry, but personal development for yourself, how that has directly impacted your own patients. So beautiful to hear that story. And I wonder for our listener who might be a little curious, who's maybe not done any personal development or has taken tiny little steps, what's the how behind that? How might they take a little step into that and satisfy some of their curiosity?
And I am going to give you a few tools that may sound simple, but please pay attention to the importance and the depth that you can give to this. And some are things that we've talked about before, but I'm going to give them like a slight distinction so that you hear them differently. The first one is cultivate gratitude. But if you can focus on the present moment, it's going to give you magic. It's easy for us to go into, I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my kid who just walked in to give me breakfast. You might have heard him. I'm right, like I'm grateful for my job. And actually the kid example, it's more of what I'm talking about, right? Like in the present moment. I am very grateful that I'm sharing this space here with my friend Erin. Like truly from my heart. She knows that. She makes it to my gratitude journal all the time. I actually shared with her that I don't know, I was going through an old journal from like 2020 and it's like I write my top 3 and it said Erin Hurley. So sweet. It must have been something that day about her that like I felt like I needed to capture that moment. I'm very grateful that I was able to make fresh Puerto Rican coffee for my mom who lives with me. I'm very grateful that it's whatever you call fall in Texas, that it's cool outside. But that's the distinction. It's not just gratitude for gratitude. It's the intention to be in the present moment as well, because that's pretty much a definition of mindfulness that really recharges our batteries. What do you think about that, Erin?
I love that. And as you were talking about journaling, and you're so good at journaling and leaving that footprint of what's happened in the past. And I think back to you and I being at a conference a couple months ago. And I thought, I'm going to list in the back of my journal that I brought to take notes all of the people I've met through personal development. And these are people that I didn't just meet once and never connected with. These are people that are active in my life, at least a couple times a year, who have reached out to me. I've reached out to them. And near the top of the list, here's Joanne Sotelo. And then here's the tree, the branches off that tree or the limbs. So here's the big trunk and here's Joanne. And then all of the people that I'd met because I'd met Joanne and how my life has been enriched. And so those journals are so important to see just where you've been when people enter your life and what impact they've had. And so I was so excited to go like, here you are in my journal. Another coaching client, I was like, here's where we met and I have you in my journal. Here you are on this page. I met you and I knew there was something special about this connection. So anyway, just a plug for journaling and then also just to celebrate. Oh my gosh, how lucky am I to have this relationship with Joanne and to see where it's led us to at this present moment. And she mentioned her son. If you're not watching the video, he was coming to the door to get her attention, and she doesn't skip a beat. It's like we're living in the present moment. I love that my boy is in my space and I'm trying to get my podcast and he didn't pay attention to the note, and we just laugh with it. And I simply love that about our relationship. All right.
Yeah,
Where were we going with
thank
that?
you, Erin. That was so sweet. Thank you. It makes my eyes tear up. Okay, so the second one with a distinction is reframe your perspective. That's one of the pillars of coaching. but do it while engaging in self-compassion. That's the distinction. Okay. Just earlier, I was coaching one of my clients. She's a physician, and she has been struggling with some things that have happened at work and some other external circumstances that kind of got her off of the routine that we had worked so hard to get her in. And she's expressing this sense of dread. That is the running commentary in her brain. I'm dreading. And then we worked with a lot of compassion, because it's easy to use this work of personal development against you, because it's not reframing thoughts of, oh, just don't feel dread. Just be positive, love and peace. And we have to tap into our self-compassion that goes, of course you feel dread. There's a pile of paperwork in your desk and charts that you have not finished because of all these things that have happened. And I am going to work on them one by one. And I am going to set time aside to get back on track. And the key that we worked on was, we don't always have control of the circumstances. That's where we started the podcast. But we have a choice in terms of our attitude. And I always say, it's not going from angry to happy, from super anxious to calm. It's just that shift, reframing our perspective, taking charge of our attitude, but with a lot of self-compassion, because life is difficult sometimes. So it's not like we can just expect to just change our thought and move forward. So it's like, I can have an attitude of, I can do this. There's a lot to do, one thing at a time. And remember, I never mean it in a minimizing way. It's always from a place of love, compassion, and forward movement. So I can go on and on about this. So I'll pause here and get your perspective on this, Erin.
Well, I love that self-compassion piece, because when we're talking about doing something, sometimes the way we do it can completely negate the results, right? You delegate to someone and then you have guilt because you delegated, which negates most of the positive experience you're going to have from that. And we oftentimes have compassion for our patients, for our family, for our coworkers, and not always for ourselves. And that is so important, because we live with ourselves. We live with our brain and our thoughts 24/7. And when we learn to be self-compassionate, it actually helps our forward momentum. It helps us course correct instead of that critical mindset that tends to be our go-to. So I love that self-compassion when we're reframing things. So I'm going to do a quick recap here. I heard you share this beautiful quote, Joanne, about when we don't have to make any changes in our lives. You read the quote one more time. It's just beautiful.
If you can feel more fulfilled in your life without changing anything, that's magic. Paraphrasing Brendan Bouchard.
And some of the three big topics you talked about that I love so much is the power of personal growth and development, and this learning, this lifelong learning journey that you've been on, Joanne, and how you're investing in yourself, not just the bare minimum, you go above and beyond. And you have heard from so many different experts who have worked with such big names out there, and just seeing that you recognize your value and it's worthwhile. And then people might say, well, that's not applicable, but yet it is, because you shared how this personal development journey of yours has directly impacted how you feel about yourself, and then how you show up for your patients, and the tools you have directly related to patient care. And that it is relevant as a physician to think about, am I growing and developing as a person? And my caveat in that is, and if you're not, what support do you need to help you start that journey? And then some specific tools on how can you get started on your own personal development journey. And that is cultivating gratitude. and focusing on mindfulness and being present in the moment, and reframing your perspective while having self-compassion, and that we always have a choice in our attitude. So powerful. And with that, Joanne, do you have another nugget of wisdom you would like to share with our listener?
Yes, I'll give you a third thing that you can do with a distinction. I want you to do one thing you love every day. And the distinction is we're going to celebrate it all. We don't wait until there's a big win to celebrate. We're going to celebrate every single little thing. We know that if we do about 20% of our time in things that we enjoy, love, we feel fulfilled, we get a good sense of self, that recharges the batteries enough for the rest of the 80% of the week. And that's a beautiful burnout prevention. It keeps you out of overwhelm. It keeps you in a better mood. And then the celebration, that's like premium fuel for our emotional, mental, and physical energy. So it's something that we can all work on both things. So that's my kind of my third very powerful tool that I can offer.
Love that, Joanne. And with that, we're going to celebrate this episode. And if you got some wisdom out of it and you would like to have this podcast in front of more women in medicine, if you can do us a favor and give us an honest review, go to the show, scroll down to those stars and give us an honest review, and a rating can help us know what you liked, what you'd like to see more of. And if there was something that you didn't like, let us know that too. It all makes a difference. And you can also subscribe or follow the show so you don't miss any of our next episodes. And with that, we hope to see you in the next episode, where we're going to talk about the pause and what magic can happen when you do. We'll see you there.
Do you want exclusive resources and the opportunity to connect with us? Then visit createmeaninginmedicine.com now, where you'll dive deeper into how you can create meaning in medicine. And if you're serious about optimizing your results, take 2 quick steps now. Connect with us on the website and tune in to the next episode.